Hi, this is Stan Bush.
Hi, this is Stephanie Calvert.
This is John Payne.
This is Jack Hughes.
Hey everyone, this is Britt Lightning from Vixen.
Hey everybody, this is Prescott Niles.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stevens.
Hello, I'm Kofi Baker.
You're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
This is not a test. This is Play That Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Joe K, and today our guest is pro wrestling ring announcer David Penzer. David was previously a guest on this show just a couple of months ago to talk about his first book, which covered his time working at WCW during the wrestling boom of the 1990s. Today, David joins us to talk about his new book, Sitting Ringside Volume 2, which was co-written by another past guest on this show, Guy Evans. Sitting Ringside Volume 2 covers David's career after WCW was bought out by WWE, including his time working at the short-lived XWF and also TNA Impact Wrestling. Now, of course, we discuss some of the topics Dave covered in the new book, including an infamous confrontation between Roddy Piper and Vince Russo, but most of this interview is actually about music. When Dave was on the show last time, he told us that he is a huge rock music fan and has seen over 1,000 concerts. And since we're a music show, I figured this would be a great opportunity for Dave to share some stories and opinions on various rock and roll topics. In this conversation, Dave shares some hot takes on bands like Kiss, Journey, REO Speedwagon, Styx, Chicago, and even Pablo Cruise. He also talks about his interactions with Gene Simmons and Rickey Medlocke from Lynyrd Skynyrd. Plus, he even tells us about some of the best concerts he's ever seen. So if you're a Dave Penzer fan, I can tell you, you're going to hear stuff in this interview that you will not find anywhere else. And just like last time, we'll be joined by a special guest co-host, and that's Aaron Camaro from the Decibel Geek podcast. Aaron is a ring announcer himself, and he hosts a music podcast. So once again, he brought some great questions for Dave. And because of that, I would like to say thank you to Aaron for joining on both episodes with Dave. And I'd also like to say thank you to Dave's co-writer, Guy Evans, who got this all set up for us. Guy has a new book coming out soon, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. But to learn more about this book, you can go to davidpenzerbook.com, and you can also follow David on Twitter at David Penzer. You can also find Guy Evans on Twitter at Guy Evans Books and also at WCW Nitro Book. And you can find Aaron and the Decibel Geek on all major podcast platforms and social media. But with that, here's our conversation with ring announcer and author of the new book, Sitting Ringside Volume 2, David Penzer. Okay, so we are here today with David Penzer to talk about his new book, Sitting Ringside Volume 2. David was here last year to promote his first book, Sitting Ringside Volume 1, which is excellent. David, thanks for coming back. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, for sure. Great to be here, man. Always enjoy your rock and roll podcast.
Thanks very much. So, Sitting Ringside Volume 1 was all about your time in WCW. Sitting Ringside Volume 2 picks up after that. So for those who aren't familiar with it, what are the major events and aspects of your career that Volume 2 covers?
Well, we go extremely in-depth in the XWF. I was involved in every facet of that promotion once they hired me, from the talent acquisitions to the house shows, to the television tapings, to the booking, talent relations, editing the shows, pretty much everything other than actually going out there shopping it. And we know nobody ever picked it up. But I actually found the original XWF business plan, and the entire business plan is actually in the book for free. It's part of the book. So we go into that. So that's an extra kind of inside baseball, inside XWF thing that I don't even know how I got it, quite frankly. But then we talk about TNA. We talk about my businesses that I started up. One was specifically was a pretty successful airbrush tattoo business, and kind of how that intersected with wrestling a few times. And then, unfortunately, we have to get in with Chris Benoit because he was part of our little Peachtree City, Georgia group, and I saw things that most people didn't see, and wasn't surprised at what ended up happening. And so I was reluctant to talk about that, but there's been a lot of people that said it really opened their eyes on the situation. So I felt like I had to do that. And then we kind of talk about going back to Impact and finishing up, so to speak.
Wow. So a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of inside baseball. There's formats. There's some old Memphis formats, reunion formats. There's Jimmy Hart did a 605 pay-per-view dedicated to obviously wrestling on TBS reunion show, and we did that formats in there. The Ric Flair's last match formats in there, which I don't think anybody's ever seen before unless you were in the production meeting. So yeah, there's a lot of just like the first book. There's a lot of cool collectible inside stuff that most people don't get a chance to see.
Wow. Okay, so a lot of bonus material.
Yeah. No, a lot of good stuff and a lot of good stories. And if you like the first one, it's told, obviously Guy weaves my story with my remembrances, and it's an interesting as interesting as the whole ride into WCW was, and how that should have never happened, quite frankly. And then the ending, and when the waves came crashing down in Panama City. This one's even more interesting, because how do you keep this crap going for another 15 years, 20 years, 25 years? It's one thing to be able to get in and do what I did, but then how do you keep it going on and off, and continue to make a living when none of it's really full time other than the XWF? So yeah, it's to me, I think it's even more interesting, although I know a lot of people like the inside WCW stuff, and I don't blame them. That's will always be something that people will have a huge interest in.
Oh yeah. I mean, that stuff was on TV, and like you said, once WCW folds up, it's like, well, there's really at that time only, unless you're going to go to Japan or something, one other place to go, and that's to go work with Vince McMahon. Was XWF, was that the one that Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan started up after WCW?
Yeah, I was actually the people in charge on the wrestling end were Jimmy Hart, Greg the Hammer Valentine, which is an experience of itself, and Brian Knobbs, which makes actually people would think out of the three that Brian Knobbs would be the most insane boss to have. But actually, Brian was pretty cool compared. I mean, Greg was nice. Greg was fine, but just grouchy, and so. So anyway, so yeah, I go into detail about what we were playing on, what we did, what we taped, where we were going with it, what was the thought process behind it, and lots of behind the scenes information. If anybody ever watched those tapes on YouTube, the three that were released or got them, when they were selling them online, Jimmy and Knobs, and just wondered what really went on, it's the most in-depth by far, behind the scenes, detailed explanation of who the players were, and what we were doing, what we were planning on doing, who were some of the players that were thinking about coming in if we got something going. How did the TNA being on pay-per-view, how did that, because me and Jeff had several off-the-record conversations that I go into about what he was doing, what we were doing, just because we were both trying to capture that market that, like you said, there was nothing but WWE. And even back then, you think about indie shows these days, and you think about these big indie shows, and I'll just say Chicago, for example, or in the Hammerstein Ballroom. And, they fly people in from all over the country. That's not how indie shows were done back then. I give this example, but if you did an indie show in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, you use a Wrestling 2 who was local. You use a Tommy Rich, maybe a Disco Inferno, who was local but a little bit more, WCW oriented than NWA, and then you fill it out with local indies. So it wasn't, you didn't have these big, indie super shows like you seem to have every weekend, really. So it was a total different landscape, and we were just all competing to try to find our piece of the pie. Ultimately, even though we didn't get there, and TNA almost bit the dust quicker than anybody would have thought. They hung in there. God bless them. And as we know, they're here today, doing great. And that's an amazing story in itself. That's not my story to tell, but from what I know about it, and I do discuss, my perspective. What an amazing, run that was. And I'm very honest, maybe even more honest in this one than I was in the first one. About a couple of people, one especially who I worked for in Impact at the end, who I thought was very disrespectful, and just a little bit more of my personal experiences, maybe because it was closer. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You talk about WCW 25 years ago. A lot of the personal stuff, the animosities and all that, you forget about that. That's what's good about time is, you remember the good stuff. But, some of the stuff we talked about was like, 6 months ago, 10 months ago, a year ago. So it's still on the mind. So I thought I'd shoot it out there. And Guy Evans, who's obviously the co-writer, author, was pretty surprised because I really stayed away from shooting on anything in WCW that, would, hurt anybody's feelings. Not, and I told a lot of truths there, but I did it in I think maybe a nicer way. Let me say, I don't know. That's a little,
Trying to be more friendly about it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the tapes of the XWF, but I do have this Hulk Hogan DVD, and his match with Kurt Hennig is on it. So I had always wondered what that whole thing was.
We go in depth with that, and he flirted with us. We flirted with him. A lot of stuff didn't happen until the very last minute. Hulk was feeling it. That match was not planned. That match was not on a format. Hulk came by to visit to shoot a promo, and there were times when he was going to be a part of it. There were times that he was, walked away. It kind of depended on the day, really. It was how he woke up in the morning and decided what to do. And he was feeling he was feeling it, and he said, "Well, I'll do a match with Kurt." So we said, "All right, hell yeah." He said, "We can't include it on the TV tapings just yet. I'm going to wait till it gets picked up and see who it gets picked up by," because Hulk is very protective of his business and his reputation. And so, especially back at that time, he was coming off of one of the hottest heel runs and then babyface runs of his career, where he basically reinvented himself. So he said, "Yeah, put me in with Kurt." And like I said, if you'd asked me 24 hours before that match took place, I'd have said there's no way in hell. But that's sort of how it went with Hulk and the XWF, and the ever-changing thoughts.
Aaron, I'm going to hand this off to you here because I know you're more familiar with TNA than I am. I know TNA is a big part of sitting ringside. So, Aaron, do you have any TNA topics we could ask Dave about?
Well, I mean, geez, I moved to Nashville because of TNA wrestling, really. We talked a little bit last time Dave was on about how I grew up in Wisconsin, and my whole life growing up, I loved pro wrestling, but the majority of the people I knew would tell me, I don't know why you like that stuff. It's fake. It's not real. I don't know why you like it. And then I came down to Nashville one time to visit, and my brother was down here, and he took me to TNA down at the fairgrounds, and I was like, wow, these are my people here. They love it and they revere it, the way it should be loved and revered. I think I might need to move down here. And so, like, TNA was kind of the catalyst of me moving to Nashville. But you didn't join up with TNA until after they moved to Florida, right?
I was a part of a couple of things that happened. Number one, and I forgot to mention about this and that it's in the book, but I was Roddy Piper's book tour manager for 45 days. We were in Billy Ray Cyrus's tour bus, left out of Nashville, as a matter of fact, and went all across the country, up to California, up and back across to New York, back down to Atlanta, and back to Nashville in a month and a half. So I go pretty much deep into detail about what it's like spending 45 days on a tour bus with Roddy Piper.
Man,
But
that must have been awesome.
I helped negotiate when Piper came in, and we pulled up in the tour bus, and I helped negotiate with Jeff when we go into detail about Piper coming in and doing the surprise appearance. Nobody was supposed to know. I don't know if that is the case or not. It started off the show and Piper's music hit. I basically and he came out of his tour bus through the back, and he did the thing. Russo came to the ring, which wasn't supposed to happen, and Roddy always felt that he was double crossed, but I don't know.
Man, I was there in the crowd. Nobody knew it. Nobody in the crowd knew Piper was there, man. I'll never forget it. The bagpipes hit. He comes out, cuts this scathing promo on Vince Russo, and the crowd is just like, whoa, like this is one of them moments where you're watching wrestling and go, yeah, that's all real right there. That's not
So I was there that night, and I helped put that together. And there was a couple other times that I went down up to Nashville. They were doing a third party booking site, and I had done that obviously as a third party booker myself for indie talent, and they wanted me to run it. So I went up a couple times to meet with them, and then go to the fairgrounds. They announced it to the talent, and we got information sheets filled out about how much people wanted to get paid for one shot, two shots. Um, Never ended up going on. They just had so much going on, never ended up happening. They were building a back end system on a computer. I actually have a lot of the memos back and forth in the book that between me and Bob Ryder and Jeff Jarrett about how it was going, and it never ended up happening. But thank God, though, the last time I went there, I got to hang out at the uh, at Tootsie's with Kurt Hennig,
Oh, nice.
and just me and him drinking, telling stories. And unfortunately, that's the last time I ever saw Kurt. And but it was great opportunity just for him and me to hang out and do gargle a couple shots as only Kurt could do. And so just to have that memory is a blessing.
Yeah, because Kurt was a part of those early TNA shows too here in Nashville.
And I got to rib him. I learned from the best ribber, and I ribbed him for an hour and a half. You got to read the book, but I got one over on Kurt, and at the end, I was afraid he's going to be mad at me. He's like, "Dude, you learned from the best." I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
he's the rib master in all wrestling history. I think you'd have to put him as number one from all the stories you hear.
He's way up there. I wasn't around in the Mr. Fuji days. And you hear some stuff about Mr. Fuji that makes Kurt look tame. But
Yeah.
but I would say in his era, Kurt was and he just loved it, man. He was like a little school kid. He's like a 6-year-old who like finally got to meet Barney the dinosaur, or a character, Mickey Mouse, whatever their favorite character was. He would just like you would see the look in his eyes and the smile on his face, and he'd be telling you, what he was going to do and in detail and stuff. And he was so passionate about it. And yeah, I'll never forget that.
I gotta ask though, going back to the Russo thing at the fairgrounds, being that I was in the crowd, I gotta know, before Piper comes out, does him and Russo have any kind of conversation about what's about to go down in the ring, or was that all ad-libbed?
What? Okay, there was one, and I talk about this in the book, but there was one meeting at the end where we were staying at the DoubleTree in Nashville. It was when the tour was over, and I arranged a meeting for Jeff to come out to meet Roddy. They had one meeting behind closed doors. What I was told by both parties, and I believe this, is that Piper was going to come out. He was going to get to say what he wanted to say. He was going to promote his book. Nobody was going to know. And at the end, he was going to leave and kind of tease, maybe I'll come back. You know what I mean? Roddy felt double crossed because he thought that Jeff smartened Russo up and came up with this angle. And he wasn't really so pissed about Russo. He was pissed that the Harris brothers came out with him almost as like muscle because it made him feel like, he couldn't, look, in Roddy's world, and I get into this a lot, and the way he grew up, fighting is fighting. So if he sees two big 6'7" twins backing up Russo and he's there by himself, in his mind, he's like, I don't know if I'm gonna win that fight. So he felt very betrayed and very double-crossed. Jeff to this day will swear that he didn't tell Russo and all that happened organically. I tend to believe him, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the opposite. But yeah, no, all that was supposed to have, there was supposed to be no interaction. There was nobody except for Jeff had talked to Piper to the best of my knowledge. And was going to try to do something special that night. And it sort of went awkward a little bit, but I see we're still talking about it. So I guess it's still special.
Yeah, because Piper tore into him and was talking about like legit things, talking about Owen Hart and things like that, to the point where the crowd was looking at this going, what is going on here? I mean, this goes beyond wrestling here. Piper really hates this guy.
For 2 years, Russo wrote all kinds of things for the WWF. I have this question. Hey, Russo, did you write in my cousin Owen's death? Did you write home? Did you ask about his family? He's dead. He was my cousin. He's dead. Why? Because someone like you, who knows nothing about the technicalities, put somebody 90 feet up. Why? I want to ask you some questions here, champ. Did you kill Owen Hart?
Well, and he did really hate him. But as Eric Bischoff says and wrote a book, controversy creates cash, and he had a book to sell. So, I don't know that he really thought in his mind, Roddy, that Russo killed Owen Hart. But I think that he thought that in his mind, he thought that all the craziness that was happening at the time in WWF with the TNA, with the hardcore stuff and the, HLA, the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
that created the atmosphere where they were putting Owen in the bleachers when he was a much more talented enough person. He didn't need that gimmick, and that accident happened. So I would never attempt to read Roddy's mind. But I think, while he associates Russo with that era and what happened in that era was, one of the things that happened was Owen Hart, unfortunately. I think, he might have said, he might have got from A to B, from A to Z, like a little bit quicker just to try to get some people talking.
Yeah, it definitely did that, man.
Did you see any of the, speaking of people who don't like Vince Russo, I've always heard that, that backstage with Vince Russo and Jim Cornette was always dicey. I've heard Cornette talk about it in shoot interviews. Was that real, or is that something that's built up for controversy's sake?
Oh, no, that's 100% real. And at a couple of points in TNA, they did bury the hatchet. When I say bury the hatchet, Jim Cornette doesn't bury a hatchet. He let it go. He said for Jeff, because I like you and because I believe in what you're doing and because I think that this is an alternative to the stupid shit Vince is doing, that I'll come and I'll help you as I can, and I won't start a fight with Russo. Just keep him away from me. I'll never forget one time I went into the meeting room where we used to have our production meetings and stuff. And I went in there and Cornette was there going through some papers because he was a producer. He was going over a finish. And we just got to talking. He pulled out the piece of paper and showed me in his last will and testament that if he's alive before, if Russo dies before he dies, that no matter what shape he's in, whether he could walk, it says this in the will, whether it has to, they have to take him in a wheelchair, whether he has to be medevaced in, that it's in his last will and testament that he demands to be flown to take into Russo's grave so he could piss on it.
Wow.
That's a shoot.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, when I tell you that was not a work in any way, shape, or form, that was not a work in any way, shape, for him. The one thing that Jim was able to do a couple of times, although it was tough for him, was to put, to work in the same, building and company as he was. But, Jeff Jarrett is a charismatic, intelligent, very smart guy, friendly guy, knows a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. And, he has that kind of charisma where he can make people, he can make a Jim Cornette and a Vince Russo, live together without killing each other. He just has that type of personality, which is one of the reasons he's been so successful.
Yeah. Talk about miracle working. Well, okay. Well, while we got some time left, why don't we switch to music? The last time you were here, you mentioned that you're a big music guy, and I remember in the first book, I believe you mentioned that you've seen like over 1,000 concerts. I'm not at that number, but I hope to get there, someday. So, well, what got you into? When did you first start seeing shows?
God, I saw. My father took me to it's Camping World Stadium now. I forgot what it was called in Orlando when I was 14 years old to see the Rolling Stones I can't think of the bowl. They had WrestleMania there a couple of times. And, but it's called the Camping World Bowl now. But, and the opening act for the Rolling Stones was Van Halen.
Oh,
brand new band that had just come on the scene, just released their first album, and they were trying to get them some good, some exposure out there by touring with the Stones. And I was 14 years old, and I think that, well, not actually. When I was a kid, my dad would take us to concerts. So, like, probably as an 8-year-old, I saw Peter, Paul, and Mary a couple times. I saw Tony Orlando and Don. I saw John Denver. So it was always something that was important, and still a big Peter, Paul, and Mary fan to this day. And I just recently heard that another one of them passed, so I think there's only one left. But
yeah,
it's just something they were able to do with 3 voices that was incredible to me. And because my dad was a hippie, I'm sort of always been a folk music guy. So.
Oh, did you see the new Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown?
I have not yet. No, I'm not a movie guy, and I especially it's funny because I even talk about this in I think the first book. I'm doing the audio book now for the first book, and I think I just recorded it. But one of the things I'm very open about my bouts, my 40-year battle with anxiety and panic attacks, and one of the reasons I don't go see movies in movie theaters is because it triggers anxiety when you go from the really dark movie theater into the light. And so for me, it's an anxiety trigger. So I really don't go to the movie. I mean, if I tell you I've seen 2 movies in a movie theater in the last 15 years, that might even be overstating it.
Oh, wow.
So, but no, I haven't seen it. I'm sure I'll see it when it's on one of these streaming services. But yeah, I was ever a big fan of his voice, but he had a huge, especially folk music and in the 60s was a huge player and really changed a lot of the game. Without people like Bob Dylan, there might not have been a Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young, or even maybe a Peter, Paul and Mary, quite frankly. And he changed the world at a time when people wanted something different, because, as we know in the late 60s and early 70s with the war in Vietnam and all that craziness, and, people needed something to latch onto. And This Land Is Your Land is, as corny as it might sound in 2025, that was something that people could get behind and, smoke a joint or take whatever they took and just, get away from all the craziness. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, when it gets to streaming, I think you should check it out because it does a good job of kind of capturing the scene beyond just Bob.
Oh yeah, for sure I will. Absolutely. It's on my list of movies to make sure to check out. Like I said, I don't go to the movie theater.
Yep, I hear you. So when you were at WCW, were you still able to go see shows, or how did that work with your schedule?
Yeah, when we could. I got to know the guys in Skynyrd very well. To this day, I still call Rickey Medlocke a friend. And
Right.
if I ever need anything, or if I ever just he'll text right back or call right back. And uh, he was a big Goldberg fan, so I helped hooked him up and became friends with those guys and ZZ Top and other bands. So I got cool opportunities to I speaking of Bruce Springsteen, when he was in Atlanta when I lived there, we got to see his show from the side of the stage, whole bunch of the wrestling people. So that was super cool with the E Street Band and all that. So yeah, I was able to fit some stuff in. Right after 9/11, they had this classic rock thing that I think they did one in LA and one in Atlanta, where like all the voices of classic, I think it was called the Voices of Classic Rock. Uh, uh, you know, Everybody from 38 Special to Skinner to Speedwagon to Styx, all the, probably 20 bands that came out and played, a couple of songs. And I got to see that, which is still super cool. Oh, and one thing I forgot when I was 16 years old, my dad took me to the Jamaica World Music Festival.
Oh, wow.
It
What
was a
was
one-time thing that they never did again, where they did it instead of like just a reggae festival, they did reggae, rhythm and blues, soul, rock and roll, classic rock, and they started the shows at like midnight, and they ended up with the sun coming out. So I remember watching the Grateful Dead play as the sun came up.
that is awesome.
That's
Jimmy
wow.
Buffett was there, and Gladys Knight and the Pips. I mean, it was a who's who of, and it was and they were supposed to build a park for it, but they never got around to doing it. So you basically were taking a blanket, sleeping on rocks and dirt.
Oh, snap.
My backup plan, if I couldn't have made it in the wrestling business and dream, and as far as bucket list stuff goes, was to be a tour manager. So I got to do that for Piper. So I got to check that off, and that was a cool experience. And yeah, I just it's funny, I usually see the same bands, but like this past year, I went and saw. I'd never seen Train. I had never even really heard. I didn't really know a lot of their songs, but they were playing with Speedwagon, which no longer exists. REO Speedwagon, and so I was offered tickets at a reduced rate to like sit like 6 rows back by a friend of mine, and I went, and now I'm a huge Train fan. Who
Wow.
would have known? They were incredible in concert. So, I gotta expand my horizons a little bit. It can't always be the Beach Boys and Styx and those type of guys. But I've seen some cool concerts, man. I think probably the best concert I ever saw, and this is staying a lot because you know how many I've seen,
Yeah.
was Brian Wilson.
Oh, okay.
Really? Wow.
It was a 2,000 seat arena. He had a full backing band. He sang every song and every Beach Boy song. And then as soon as he told stories and stuff, and then as soon as my wife thought it was, my wife didn't know that much about his mental issues, but as soon as it was over, he just stood up and walked to the back. He didn't like come out and wave to the crowd or like bow or anything like that. He was in his keyboard. He stood up and he walked to the back, and the rest of the band said goodbye. But geez, what an amazing opportunity to see a music genius in so many ways. Not only perform the songs that he mostly wrote or created, but explain the sounds and the crazy things he did. And he replicated all that in a live concert.
Yeah.
Wow.
I never got a chance to see Brian. It's one of my big regrets. I remember the Beach Boys had their 50th anniversary tour that came through Milwaukee, and I remember thinking, "Oh, great, they're back properly. I'll see them next time," because I thought they were
I
all.
saw
I
that.
thought they
I
had
saw
fixed
that.
things.
I saw that one too. When Brian came back, I got
Yeah.
to see Simon and Garfunkel a couple of times.
Wow.
I've gotten really lucky with some of the bands that I've been able to see. Uh, like I said, my first stadium show was the Rolling Stones. So it's just a passion of mine. Some people like fancy cars, and some people, they like $100 steak dinners, or I don't even know if you get $100 steak dinner anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Throw me in a live concert with a couple of cocktails, and it's just for me, it's the best.
Right there with you. Were
Yeah.
you there? You were there at WCW when Kiss played, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
was. I actually still have the Nitro Kiss shirt somewhere. Uh,
Oh,
at some point, I'm going to sell for a fortune because they're worth like $800.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd love to have one of those.
yeah, but
yeah, sell it to Aaron.
Yeah, my wife won't
yeah,
let me buy that.
and then Gene Simmons helped us a lot in XWF. Super
Oh,
nice guy, totally full of himself, but I mean, he sort of knows it, and he sort of like, he sort of like plays off it. I'm fucking Gene Simmons, and I'm the king, and everybody else bows to me. But hey, if I like you, let's have a fun conversation, or let me help you. You know what I mean? But he's going to remind you in the future that he helped you. He's
Yeah.
always going to say, "Hey, remember that time I helped you?" So I don't know him too well. I had a couple dinners with him. Got to hang out with him a little bit in Las Vegas at the NAPTY when we were trying to get people to buy the XWF shows. But uh, again, totally full of himself. But he gets it. Some people are full of themselves and they think they're great, and they make a fool of themselves. He just understands that he's Gene fucking Simmons, and nobody else is above him. And as long as you're cool with that, let's hang out.
Nice. You got any Ace Frehley stories?
No, I saw them with Ace Frehley. I never met Ace Frehley. The one thing I got to tell you, the one thing I was disappointed on their farewell tour. They did that last show. I think it was on. There was a pay-per-view. I think it was in Madison Square Garden. They should have had Ace Frehley and Peter Criss come back. I would have bought it. I would
Yeah.
have bought it. I didn't buy the show because I had just seen them in Tampa in like the fourth row. And I went with Jericho and his group of friends. And we'd just seen them like maybe like 3-4 months before. But if he'd have brought up those guys, I'd bought the pay per view. I just thought, now's the time. It's the last show, and you've done your farewell tour for 5 years, half a decade. This is your last show, and it's in New York. Bring them on and let them sing a song. But I don't know why they didn't. But like I said, it cost them money, and I know the one thing that Gene Simmons cares about more than anything else is money.
that is true.
They couldn't
You
even.
think as such a smart businessman, he'd have done it. So there must have been some really big heat with that or something, because he is one of the smartest business people I've ever been around. And even watching him from afar, going places where nobody would ever go, kiss caskets and stuff. He's all about the Benjamins. And, you think he would know as a smart business guy that those two guys singing their hit songs and being together one last time would make money, but they didn't do it. And to this day, I wish I could meet him one more time and ask him why he didn't go there, because he's all about the Benjamins for sure, and that would have been more Benjamins in his pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't even get it together enough to play together when they got inducted into the Hall of Fame. So that basically tells me nobody tells Gene Simmons what to do except Paul
Yeah.
Stanley.
Well, he's kind of stuck with Paul Stanley,
Yeah.
Now he's touring now as the Gene Simmons band, and instead of
It was
playing 18,000 seat amphitheaters, they're doing the 2,000, the same actually venue that I saw Brian Wilson in. It's called Ruth Eckerd Hall. It's a 2,000 seat intimate venue, and he's playing that. So with Paul Stanley and the pyro and all that, he can sell out 18,000 seats. But with as the Gene Simmons band, it's more like a couple thousand.
Yeah, but at least with the Gene Simmons band, he doesn't have to play the same exact songs every single night in the same exact order as they. But like you said, if you've seen them in Tampa 2 years before their final show, then you've seen their final show. It's the exact same thing. With the Gene Simmons band, he's busting out all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the advantage of not being having to do that with pyro and all the stuff, the smoke and all that stuff, graffiti, not graffiti, what do they call it, that comes down from the
Confetti.
and you got, so you really have to play the same set because there's video involved, and you can't just say, hey, remember this song, guys, why don't we try to see if we can play it. That's one of the things that I really dig about Billy Joel. Billy Joel, just like he'll like ask people, like he'll ask people to spit out a song.
Yeah.
And he does this one thing where he lets the audience pick between one of two songs that he has that's not on his regular set list. and he just does it by audience applause. Somebody will shout out something, and he'll look at the band, and they'll like go from what they were playing, which is his hit, to a couple riffs of that song, back to his song that they were playing. It's really good, and I'm sure you could look it up on YouTube and stuff, but it's super cool. And that's one of the things I think that makes him different is, at this point now we're all getting the same set list every night, which actually is kind of cool because you know when to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Seriously, whenever I go to a concert now, I pull up setlist.fm and I see what the set lists are, and I say, okay, I'm going to go get a drink on this song, and then I'm going to go to the bathroom on this song, so in a lot of ways it's helpful, but it takes away the spontaneity of it for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Of all the shows you've seen, so you mentioned, what might be your best one. You mentioned a very cool one you saw when you were younger. Have you ever seen one that either let you down or went off the rails or just wasn't a good show? What's one that pops in your mind as not a particularly good one?
They opened for what's called the Little River Band, although it's not the Little River Band anymore. Nice. But the band is called Ambrosia. I don't know if you remember them.
Oh yeah, they were mentioned in that Yacht Rock documentary that's out now.
Yeah,
gold right there.
But yeah, they thought they were like Seals and Crofts or the Doobie Brothers, and they were doing and some people might appreciate this. My brother loves guitar riffs and drum solos and all kinds of stuff. There was one song they played, they didn't sing a word for like 15 minutes. I'm like, you're the fucking opening act, sing your hits and go away.
Yeah.
If you're the headliner, I get it. You're the opening act. You're supposed to sing your hits, sing a couple encores, and then let the headliner go on. And they didn't seem to get that, and so that was disappointing. And my wife will. I'm more open if they open for a show, because I think they must live around here, because they open a lot of those shows at that Ruth Eckerd Hall I was telling you about when they need an opening act. And no, it wasn't Ambrosia. Sorry, my bad. Pablo Cruise.
Oh, interesting.
Pablo Cruise. I knew Ambrosia didn't sound right. Pablo Cruise, and to this day, my wife won't go to a concert. If we go to a concert, if Pablo Cruise is opening, we don't go until Pablo Cruise is done, because my wife will not sit through a Pablo Cruise concert. She refuses. Oh. She's gotten that way with Chicago, unfortunately, and I'm like a huge, huge Chicago mark. So they're coming this summer, and I got to figure out how to drive myself to Chicago. And I mean, I could drive myself, obviously, but do I want to go to a concert by myself? I don't know. Maybe I could find somebody who wants to go with me, but huge Chicago fan. But when they start getting in the nitty gritty and they do that, it's all still the same set list and all that, but they'll go back and do like a whole album, from back in the day. She loses interest, and she finally tapped out. She said, Dave, I've been to like, 8 or 9. I'm not doing it anymore. You want to go on your own? Have fun. I don't care.
They're not back with Peter Cetera, right?
Oh, no. They've been
you think he'll ever come back into the fold?
They had after Peter Cetera, they had Jason Scheff,
yep.
And for the longest time, and then he left, and they had different people come in. There was this one guy called, what was his name? I could see. I thought he was the best. Jeff Coffey. I thought he was the best of the replacements that they've had, but he hated touring and only lasted. They'd have kept him on and probably paid him a lot of money because he was great. But he hated touring and decided after a year, after one tour, he was done. He walked away from it. You got to give a guy credit.
Yeah.
And now they have a guy named Neil something who was a Canadian Chicago cover band singer who they plucked like Arnel Pineda out of obscurity to sing the songs. But there's always this big argument, if it's not the real lead singer, is it the real band? You know what? I don't give a shit. If you sound like it, and you sound tight and you play tight, I'm okay. Do I think it's a shame that the Little River Band is really not the Little River Band? And for people that don't have any idea what I'm saying, you might want to look into it, because to me, it's one of the most fascinating stories. I keep trying to get Guy Evans to write his next book about the Little River Band.
That's some drama right there.
Well, I mean, The guys that wrote the guys, not, you've heard some stuff, this REO Speedwagon crap that's going on, Kevin Cronin, the music of REO Speedwagon. You've heard stuff like that. But the guys that wrote the songs and sung the songs, they're not even allowed to sing the songs in the United States.
That's right.
Not even if they don't call themselves anything close to that. They're not allowed. I don't know. This guy Wayne something, who was like a late member in the band, who ended up buying them all out when they all decided they hated each other, must have found the greatest attorney in the world, because they're not allowed to come to America and tour as, I think their name is Glenn Birtles, but whatever their names are, and play the songs in the United States. And so he has a cover band basically that's called the Little River Band, and nobody gets into inside baseball kind of music stuff, so they think they're going to see the Little River Band. Right. I've seen them a bunch of times. They sound great, but it's not the guys. So that one to me is as close to like a cover band as you could get. But you know what? I'll still go see them if the price is right, because I enjoy the music and they sound like the band. And you know what? We're running out of time to where, some of these bands, if a Kevin Cronin can't tour anymore, it doesn't matter if he's called REO Speedwagon or Kevin Cronin or Joe Blow, that music is going to die along with it. And you're going to, now cover bands are charging $30-$40 to play. And I'm like, that's insane.
Yeah, it's big business. It's all about owning the IP, and it's kind of a bummer that like all of the music news in the last 5-10 years is like about corporate boardroom stuff, like with Journey, where they're all trying to steal the name from each other and the trademark, and it just ends.
They barely finished the tour last year.
Yeah, they were suing each other while they
they were in an active lawsuit as they were touring. I can't imagine how that must have gone on stage. But and again, a lot of it, we go back to the very beginning. A lot of it is politics.
Yeah,
because Jonathan Cain married a Paula White, who's a I don't know if she's a reverend or what you would call her, but very active, and she was Donald Trump's religious coordinator. What, I don't know the exact term. And so Jonathan Cain became a Trumper, and Neil Schoen didn't like Trump, so it became a fight about Trump. So
I did not know that.
Yeah.
We go back to we come full circle in an interview about politics, professional wrestling, and music, and we come back full circle is these people, it's freaking band Journey, who makes more money than God by going out and doing these shows, are about to break up because for various reasons, but one of the main was when Jonathan Cain became a Trump guy.
Wow.
And whether I hate Trump or I like Trump, I don't care. I don't care if you like song. Go sing that's Don't Stop Believing and Faithfully and all your hits. Like I think they call them the Dirty Dozen in Journey. Fans do. They have to sing the same 12 songs every show. They call them the Dirty Dozen. Yeah. But I don't care. Wear a MAGA shirt on stage. You ain't gonna offend me. Freaking just sing your songs.
Yeah. And then you got a lot of people who want Steve Perry to come back, but I actually think that would be awful because, like, Arnel Pineda's been, tried and true for years now, and Steve Perry's been a weird recluse. So
there's a couple bands that you would have thought would have found a way to get back together, and never did. Journey's probably the biggest one. Obviously, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes and all that stuff. I have more of an idea about the second one, which is Styx and Dennis DeYoung. Because they've been more open about it. But you'd think that at some point they'd have done at least one tour with Steve Perry. But, there's been rumors about his voice. I don't know. I mean, maybe he could still hit the high notes. Maybe he can't. I know that's a hard catalog to sing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's
the Styx one is easy. It's you made us sing Mr. Roboto, and we'll never forgive you for that.
But they sing it in concert now. they sing it. I'm totally with you. I get it. I remember seeing the Mr. Roboto tour, and everybody other than Dennis DeYoung on stage looked like they wanted to be under a rope. With the robots and all that stuff. But I was there for that tour in the Hollywood Sported Tour.
Great.
But now they sing the song. So you think at some point they say, okay, well, you know what? We didn't like the experience and we didn't like the drama. but you know what? The song ended up being a hit, and we sing it now anyway. So why don't we go do what, they're doing okay for themselves, and I'm sure these guys all make what do the bands get paid, like $1 million a show for these Live Nation package tours?
Well, that's what I think is that like they all make enough money where they don't have to. Like they're
no,
at
none
that
of them have to.
level where they don't have to reunite, so there's no real pressure.
Yeah, why does Chicago tour 200 days? I mean, these guys, the original guys, are in their late 70s, early 80s. I mean, I guess just like wrestling, you get addicted to that life. You get addicted to that pop. You get addicted, sitting at home is boring. Now, towards the end, although I don't travel the way those bands travel, but I towards the end got really tired of the travel with Impact Wrestling, and so I don't miss that. But if I could travel on a private plane and private tour buses and stuff, I'd probably be still wanting to go out there and ring announce every night. So so God bless them. But like I said, they're only going to be around for so long, and then cover bands used to be free, like if you pay a cover charge, and now it's like $45 in ticket fees. To see it like a Journey cover band, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not paying that. I've seen the real stuff enough times. Maybe in 20 years, if they're still around, if I'm still around, knock on wood. But right now in 2025, I ain't paying $60 to see a Journey tribute show. Sorry.
Yeah, I think they gotta wait till the main ones exit the stage at least.
But then it'll all be holograms anyway.
Yeah, see, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
No, me neither.
I'm one of the easiest people when it comes to cover bands, and if there's any real members and stuff, I'm willing to forgive as long as you sound like the records that I listened to growing up. But the holograms, no, that ain't cool.
Yeah,
I think the only thing that would make holograms cool is if they were able to like recreate, like you say, Van Halen in 1982, and it was like the replica stage. The guys are age appropriate. It's them in their prime. Or I want to see Kiss on the Destroyer tour. In those.
But I don't want to. But do you want to? But do you want to pay $150 to go sit in the stadium and see it?
No, not $150.
It's all about what they're going to do with it. If they come to small arenas in each town and charge $50, first come first serve, like for a Kiss, if that's even feasible financially, because I don't know what the cost of doing all that is. But if they do that, I think it'll be something like the old. God, I'm dating myself. The old. What was that movie? That was a phenomenon with Meatloaf and.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. If they don't charge too much and they make it intimate, all the all the Kiss fans will come, and it'll become like a rite of passage. You know what I mean? But if you're going to put a bunch of not real people on a stage in front of 15,000 people and charge $150 for it, then I think it becomes like, is this really worth it? And to some, it may be. You may want to see the Styx Destroyer tour, and you might be willing to pay $150 since you never got to. I'm assuming never got to see that as a fan, and maybe I might be willing to do that for the Beatles or something like that, or Elvis. But I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting with the technology. I'm an old-fashioned guy, unfortunately.
Yeah, then let's not even start talking about AI.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm a realtor, and a lot of people, when they write their listings, they do their listings and the description of the homes. Everybody does AI now, and I won't do it. It's just me being stubborn, because it'd probably be a lot easier and a lot better. But I just think that's cheating. While there's probably advantages of AI, I've kind of yet to see them.
Easier maybe, but definitely not better. Because I think most people can spot it.
I mean, I don't pay attention to it, so I don't know half of what goes on. I just know the term, and I know that a lot of realtors use it. They'll put in a brief description and I'll write out, 500 words. And I don't know. So I'm trying, I'm not good with change. So, for example, I have my wife gave me her laptop. That's much better than the laptop I'm talking into now. And like 2 weeks ago, and it's sitting in my office. I'm in the living room, and she keeps telling me, why don't you go use the computer that is much better than the computer you have, and you don't have to wait 10 seconds every time you try to load something. And I'm like, you know me, I hate change. Eventually I'll go do it because I'll be forced to. This computer will break. But I'm being totally honest with you, I hate change. So you know, when it comes to, you know, I like I said, not to talk in circles, but I could deal with no original members if you sound like the real deal, but I don't want to see holograms.
Yeah.
I reserve the right to change my mind, by the way.
Well, yeah. I mean, let the technology, develop a little bit more. Let them figure out the pricing, and maybe there could be a way that it's worthwhile. But as it stands right now, not interested.
You know, if they're charging $60 for a Journey cover band,
Yeah.
then I can't even imagine how much it must cost to put that stuff together. And it's just, to me right now, the value's not there. But let's see,
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get out of here, Aaron, do you have any closing questions for Dave?
No, Dave, it's always awesome to talk to you, man. I'm a huge fan of yours. Always have been. We established last time you had a inadvertently but huge hand to me getting into being a ring announcer myself. So,
I remember that.
when Joe said, "Hey, I got Dave coming back on. You want to sit in with us?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I do." Any chance I could talk to Dave, I will. This is pretty cool. Since the last time we talked, I got hired for an independent promotion here on the outskirts of Nashville, and I'm writing their shows for them. And
Cool.
It's been going really good. The first one we had, there was about 180 people. Next time, just a little over 2. This last show, we were right at 300 people in the audience. So we're telling stories and building characters, and people are really getting into it, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. So
That's what it's all about. It's very simple if you do it the right way. You guys read my book when I talked about Jimmy and taking over WCW Saturday Night, and it's just simple stories that with consistency and talent that are over, and or you get them over. And if you do that, it's not tough. It's tough to do 3 hours of SmackDown. Don't get me wrong, but it's not tough to book a 1 hour show or a 2 hour show or a live event. You just keep it simple, stupid, and I think that's a lot of what Jim Cornette talks about. Even whether you love him or hate him, but I think he gets kind of apoplectic about it. But I think what he's trying to say is if you just slow it down and keep it simple, it doesn't have to be this intricate stuff, but. People do what they do, and everybody has their own vision for what they do. But I'm glad you're involved, and I'm glad that you're successful. And hey, my 2 favorite things in the world, other than my family, is professional wrestling and music. So this podcast is perfect for me. If you ever want me to jump back in, just give me a day's notice, and I'll do my best because I have fun.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thanks, Dave.
And so
with you.
So I have a question, Joseph. So are you gonna boycott Kevin Cronin, or are you gonna go see the show?
Oh man, that's tough because I've seen them more than almost any other band.
Me too, actually.
Yeah. So in the Midwest here, they come around every year. So I kind of don't need to see them because I've seen that show. But here's the problem: the next time they're coming with Styx, and Don Felder's opening. Yeah. And I love Don Felder.
I've never seen Don Felder.
He's really good. I mean, he's Eagles, and then he's got that solo song Heavy Metal. So now I'm torn because someone else is on the ticket that I kind of do want to see. And if I pay the ticket, I'm not going to storm out early. I'm going to get my money's worth. So
it's the same. The ironic part is I talked about the concert where they opened for Train. It's the same band that was on stage.
Yeah.
It's not any. If you saw him last year and you see him this year, it's the exact same band singing the exact same songs. They just don't have the name. Obviously, there was a dust up with the bass player Bruce Hall, and everybody's taking sides on Twitter and Facebook. And look, I even when they were REO Speedwagon and Bruce Hall was touring with them, I had seen him so much I wasn't going to go spend $100 at that Ruth Eckerd Hall place I keep mentioning, because that's where sometimes. Bands can get a lot of money because there's a great acoustics and only 2,000 seats.
Yeah.
So they jump up the ticket prices. So instead of spending $75 to see 3 bands, you spend $175 to see one, but the sound's better and you're up close. They sing maybe, different stuff than they do on a package tour. But I'm not going to pay that for a band like REO or Styx or anything like that anymore, just because I've seen them so many times. But you know what? You throw in Don Felder, who I've never seen, and Styx, who are always great, and Kevin Cronin doing the same exact set I saw him do with the same exact players that he played with when he opened for Train last year. Hell, I'm not thinking twice about it. I feel sorry for Bruce. I feel sorry for Bruce Hall. It sounds like he got the short end of the stick. Life ain't fair. Guy has $1 zillion and got to live his dream for 40 years. Not too bad of a gig.
I think I'm with you, especially because what you mentioned earlier, we don't have a lot of time. We got to appreciate them as we have them. So I'm probably going to end up going to that show. Yeah. I am very interested to see where Bruce ends up. I hope he joins another legacy band and we see.
I hope so too. And I get the people that are mad about it. And was it fair? Probably not. But I tend not to get into big time skirmishes between multi-millionaires.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably saw enough of that in the wrestling business.
Yeah, you're going to be okay, Bruce.
Yeah.
And Kevin, you're going to be okay. Right. And however it works out, they'll probably all get back together in 2 years and do a farewell tour. So
yeah, well, here's hoping.
I don't know nothing about REO Speedwagon, but when I was a kid, I had to do a school report on somebody, and I picked our local weatherman, and he was the lead singer of REO Speedwagon's brother. So Mark Cronin or Kevin Cronin.
Oh.
Kevin's the singer, and I've heard actually that his brother is a meteorologist. I forgot that though, but I do now that you mentioned it, it came back to me. Yeah,
but I was a little kid growing up in the middle of Wisconsin. He was our weatherman for many years.
That is awesome. I didn't know that.
Well, they went in different directions. That happens in films.
Both on TV, I guess.
One's riding the storm out, the other one's letting you know what you should do when it comes.
Kind of ironic. That's funny. It's kind of ironic.
Awesome.
Yeah. That might be the funniest thing I've ever said.
That is freaking great. Oh, I love it.
All right, guys. Well, if that's the funniest thing you ever said, we gotta end here because I don't want to take away from I don't want any of us to take away from your moment. But it was fun. Really
Living this moment forever.
Well, all right. Well, Dave, thanks again so much for coming by. You absolutely should come back sometime. We can hang out and talk music again.
Anytime.
This has been a treat.
Don't forget though, City Ringside Volume 2. A ton of bonus material. You could go to David Penzer book, oneword.com. There's all kinds of like Ric Flair's last match format, stuff like that. And you can go to Amazon.com and get that as well. And for those of you who are into audiobooks, we're working on the audiobooks not as we speak, but I've been doing them the last couple of weeks. So that's coming out soon. I didn't realize how big a deal audiobooks were to some people. The newer generation. So we're working on that. And thank you for the cheap plug and the great conversation.
Thank you, Dave. And congrats on the book. People should follow you on Twitter at David Penzer. I always enjoy when you pop off about something. So thanks again for your time, man. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Well, I had a blast. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, thanks for listening. There's no shortage of great content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means quite a lot. If you're so inclined, please give this podcast a 5-star rating and a positive review wherever you get your podcasts. And share our links wherever you can, or mention this show to anyone you know looking for a podcast recommendation. All of this helps us out a great deal, and I appreciate it. You can connect with us on social media too. We are at Play That Podcast on Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, and even TikTok. Or we are at Play That Rock and Roll on YouTube and Instagram. Please post a comment and say hello. Finally, Play That Rock and Roll is a proud member of the Pantheon podcast community. So if you're looking for more music podcasts beyond this one, trust me, start with Pantheon. You won't be disappointed. Otherwise, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great music and stories from the world of classic rock.